This poor girl goes to a millionaire and says, "Uncle, my stepfather is going to take my life today." The millionaire is shocked and decides to take action. Comment on what you think will happen. Your opinion is very important. And subscribe to my channel to support my work. Your help is very important. The sun beat down on the brick streets of Harmony Creek, rural Alabama, when Richard Huntington, 52, parked his luxury car in front of the old Victorian house that was to become his newest venture. His graying hair and impeccable suit contrasted sharply with the simplicity of the place. As he observed the aging facade, he tried to ignore the ache in his chest, the same one that had accompanied him since the passing of Eleanor, his wife, after 15 years battling a degenerative disease. "It'll be good for you, Richard. A change of scenery. Start something new," his doctor had said after weeks of watching him fade in the construction company office in New York City. The small resort he planned to open in Harmony Creek seemed the perfect excuse to escape the memories haunting him in the city. His thoughts were interrupted by a sharp cry, followed by the sound of bare feet running on the pavement. A girl, no more than 6 years old, messy curly hair and hazel eyes filled with terror, ran towards him. Her simple clothes were dirty and torn, and there were tear streaks on her dusty face. "Mister, please help me. He's going to bury me alive." The little girl clung to his legs, trembling. "My stepfather, he's coming. He said he'll bury me if my mom doesn't pay what she owes." Richard felt a chill run down his spine. Before he could process the situation, a man appeared around the corner, staggering and visibly impaired. "Ashley, get back here now, you little brat," he shouted, his slurred voice betraying his state of intoxication. "Please, mister, don't. Let him get me," whispered Ashley, hiding behind Richard. The man approached, reeking of alcohol. "Hey, rich guy, this girl is my stepdaughter. Give her to me, I'll take her home," he said, extending a calloused hand towards Ashley. "Sir, you're clearly intoxicated," Richard replied, maintaining his composure despite his racing heart. "I won't hand over a frightened child to someone in that condition." "You don't know who you're messing with," the man roared, who Richard would later learn was named Darrell. "This family owes me money, and Donna is going to pay, even if I have to use the little pest to—" "Is there a problem here?" A commanding female voice cut through the threat. A middle-aged woman, wearing a beige blazer despite the heat, approached with firm steps. The badge on her hip glinted in the Alabama sun. "Sheriff Johnson," Darrell mumbled, taking a few steps back. Sheriff Brenda Johnson, 50, observed the scene with experienced eyes. Her face, etched with time, showed a mixture of authority and compassion that made Richard feel a flicker of recognition. Brenda Johnson from law school?" he asked, still protecting Ashley. The sheriff narrowed her eyes for a moment before a faint smile appeared on her lips. Richard Huntington, who would have thought after 30 years, but the reunion was interrupted by a desperate female cry. "Ashley! Honey!" A young woman, no more than 35 years old, ran towards them. Her eyes, identical to Ashley's, were swollen from crying. Donna Silva bore the marks of a hard life on her pretty face, and her simple, faded floral dress revealed a recent bruise on her arm. "Mom!" Ashley tried to run to her, but Donna stopped when she saw Darrell. "Please," Donna whispered, looking at Richard and Brenda, "don't let him hurt my daughter. I'll do anything. Just protect her." "You little tramp!" Darrell lunged towards Donna, but was restrained by 2 deputies who arrived on the scene. "Take him to the station," Brenda ordered, "and I want a restraining order for Donna and the girl by the end of the day." As Darrell was led away, cursing and promising revenge, Richard noticed something that made his heart skip a beat. Ashley, still clinging to his leg, was breathing heavily, and her lips were slightly blue, the same sign he saw so many times in Eleanor. "She needs a doctor," he said, picking the girl up in his arms. "I think there's something wrong with her." "Art!" "No!" Donna cried. "Please, she can't go to the hospital. He'll find us there. He always does." I know a cardiologist in New York, Richard said, feeling an inexplicable connection to this frightened child. I can help, if you'll let me. Donna hesitated, years of distrust and suffering weighing on her shoulders. But there was something in Richard's eyes, a sincerity she hadn't seen in a long time. Why do you want to help us? She asked, her voice trembling. Richard looked at Ashley, who had fallen asleep in his arms, exhausted. Because sometimes life puts us in the right place at the right time for a reason. What none of them knew at that moment was that this encounter would change their lives forever, and that the secrets buried in Donna's past connected to Richard's family in a way that no one could imagine were about to come to light, bringing with them a storm of revelations that would shake the foundations of Harmony Creek. At the Harmony Creek Sheriff's Department, the ceiling fan spun lazily, barely alleviating the afternoon heat. Brenda watched Donna through the window of her office as the young mother, sitting on a bench in the hallway, cradled Ashley in her arms. The girl was still breathing with difficulty, and the sound of her shallow breaths made Richard's heart clench. This isn't the first time Darryl has threatened the girl, Brenda said, pouring a glass of water for Richard, but Donna always goes back to him. Fear and financial dependence are heavy chains to break. Richard sipped the water, his mind working quickly. How much does she owe the loan sharks? 20 grand, Brenda replied. Darryl took the money to gamble, lost it all, and disappeared for 3 months. When he came back, the debt had tripled with interest, and he threatened to use Ashley as collateral. I can pay it, Richard said without hesitation. It's not that simple, Brenda sighed, sitting down in her worn chair. Donna has a complicated past. 20 years ago, she worked as a maid for a wealthy family in New York City. She was accused of theft, lost her job, and came back to Harmony Creek pregnant and disgraced. She hasn't been able to find steady work since. Something about that story made Richard feel a chill. What was the name of the family? Before Brenda could answer, a sharp cry cut through the air. Ashley was having a crisis, her lips bluer than before. Donna, desperate, tried to calm her. I need to get her to the hospital now. Richard ran to them, picking the girl up in his arms. On the way to the car, an elderly woman who sold herbs in the square in front of the sheriff's department approached quickly. Wait, she called out, her wrinkled face contracted with concern. I know that kind of breathing. It's just like my daughter's when she was little. Granny Irma, Donna whispered, recognizing the 78-year-old woman that everyone in town respected for her medicinal knowledge. Let me see the girl, Irma asked, approaching. Her wise eyes examined Ashley carefully. It's the heart. My daughter had the same thing. We don't have time for home remedies, Richard interrupted, already opening the car door. It's not home remedies she needs, Irma retorted firmly. It's a serious condition. I know because... She hesitated, looking at Donna with a strange expression. Because it runs in the family. Donna frowned. What do you mean, runs in the family? You don't even know us. Irma's face twisted in an expression of old pain. Yes, I do, Donna. I knew your mother, and you're identical to her. A heavy silence fell over the group, broken only by Ashley's labored breathing. Donna staggered as if she had been slapped. My mother? But she abandoned me when I was a baby. How do you... We don't have time for this now, Richard cut in, already starting the car. Let's get to the hospital and sort this out later. At the county hospital, while the doctors examined Ashley, Richard made frantic calls to New York City, trying to get a specialist. Donna, sitting in a corner of the waiting room, couldn't take her eyes off Irma, who insisted on accompanying them. Richard's phone rang, breaking the tension. It was Clark, his business partner of 20 years. Richard, what's this I hear about you not coming back to New York today? We have the meeting with the investors tomorrow. Something came up, Clark. I need to stay a few more days. Days? Are you crazy? What about the resort? The contracts. Send everything here. I'll handle it from here." There was a silence on the other end of the line. When Clark spoke again, his voice was different. "There's something you need to know about Harmony Creek, about this resort you want to build. I'm catching the first flight there." Before Richard could question him, the doctor came out of the emergency room. His face was grave. "Her condition is serious. It's a rare congenital heart defect. We need to do surgery urgently, but we don't have the facilities here. She needs to go to New York." Donna started to cry. "I can't afford surgery in New York." "I'll pay," Richard said. "I'll arrange everything right now." But as he turned to make more calls, he came face to face with Darrell, who had been released from the sheriff's department after posting bail. He was holding a folder with documents. "Not so fast, Mr. Big Shot," he said with a malicious smile. "Custody of Ashley is still mine, and if you want to take her to New York, you're gonna pay the price I ask." At that moment, Irma stood up, her eyes flashing with anger. "You can't do that, not to my granddaughter." Everyone turned to her, shocked. Donna felt the ground disappear beneath her feet. "Granddaughter?" she whispered. "Yes," Irma replied, tears streaming down her wrinkled face. "I'm your grandmother, Donna, and I already lost one daughter because of this same disease. I'm not going to lose my great-granddaughter too." The silence that followed was broken by a new crisis from Ashley in the emergency room. The monitors began to beep frantically, and the doctors rushed to attend to her. "She doesn't have much time," the doctor said, hurrying out of the room. "We need this surgery in no more than 48 hours. Richard looked at Donna, then at Irma, and finally at Darrell, who was still smiling with his documents in hand. A decision needed to be made, and fast. But what no one knew was that Clark, flying to Harmony Creek at that moment, was bringing with him a revelation that would change everything. An old connection with Darrell that went back to shady deals in the past, and a secret about Donna's true identity that would make the ground shake beneath everyone involved. Night fell on Harmony Creek as Clark arrived at the hospital, his expensive suit rumpled from the trip and his forehead shining with sweat. As he entered the reception area, his eyes immediately found Darrell, and a palpable tension filled the room. The mutual recognition was instantaneous, and the blood drained from both their faces. "You," Darrell whispered, the documents trembling in his hands. Clark straightened his tie, visibly uncomfortable. "Long time no see, Darrell. Didn't expect to find you here." Richard, who was watching the scene, felt his stomach churn. "You two know each other?" Before anyone could answer, Donna ran out of the emergency room. "She's awake! Ashley's awake!" The group rushed to the room where Ashley was sitting up, in bed, still pale but conscious. Her big brown eyes scanned the faces around her until they found Richard. A small smile lit up her tired face. "Mr. Richard," she called in a weak voice, "you stayed." Those two simple words hit Richard like a punch in the chest. Something about Ashley reminded him so much of Eleanor, not just the disease, but that silent strength, that ability to smile even in pain. "Of course I stayed, little one," he replied, holding her small hand. "And I'm going to take care of you." "Like heck you are," Darrell roared, stepping forward. "This girl is my collateral. Either you pay what I want or she doesn't leave here." "Shut up!" Donna yelled, surprising everyone with her outburst. "You don't control anything anymore. I'm pregnant, Darrell, 2 months along, and I'm not going to let you destroy another life." The silence that followed was deafening. Darrell staggered as if he had been slapped, his wide eyes fixed on Donna's still imperceptible belly. "Pregnant," he muttered, and for a moment his mask of cruelty fell away, revealing something almost human in his gaze. Irma, who had been quietly observing everything, approached Donna. "My granddaughter," she said softly, "let me tell you a story about your mother, about me, and about how we got here." Meanwhile, Clark pulled Richard out of the room. His face was tense, the worry lines deeper than usual. Richard, you need to know. 15 years ago, Daryl and I did business together here in Harmony Creek. He convinced me to participate in a scheme. We used money from humble people, promising impossible returns. When it all fell apart, I fled to New York. That's when I met you, and we started the construction company. Richard felt the blood run cold. That's why you didn't want me to build the resort here. Yes, but there's more. The money that Daryl is demanding from Donna, it's not just hers. They're old debts from when she worked in New York. Your house, Richard. In your parents' house. The revelation hit Richard like lightning. Long-buried memories began to emerge. A young maid accused of theft, his angry mother, missing jewelry. "Donna," he whispered. It was her. Inside the room, Irma held Donna's hands, her words flowing like a dammed-up river that finally finds its course. "Your mother, my daughter, April, didn't abandon you by choice. In the 70s, during the big recession, our whole town had to migrate. I stayed behind, taking care of the sick. When I was finally able to go after her in New York City, I found out that it was too late. She was very sick, the same condition as Ashley. You were only 2 years old when she left this world." Donna cried silently, years of abandonment and hurt being reinterpreted in seconds. "You were left in a shelter," Irma continued. "When I finally found you, you had already been adopted. I spent years looking for you until I discovered that you had returned to Harmony Creek. But what could an old herb seller offer a grown woman?" "Why didn't you tell me before?" Donna sobbed. "Fear," Irma replied simply. "The same fear that makes you stay with Daryl. But now it's different. Now we have a chance to fix everything." At that moment, Ashley had another seizure. The machines began to beep frantically, and the medical team rushed into the room. Amidst the chaos, Daryl took the opportunity to escape, taking Ashley's medical records with him. "He's going to try to stop her transfer to New York!" Donna cried, desperate. But there was something different in the air. A new determination shone in everyone's eyes. Richard, still processing Clark's revelations, made a quick call. "Brenda, I need your help. I think I discovered something about Daryl's past that can help us." Outside the hospital, the lights of the Lantern Festival began to illuminate the Harmony Creek sky. It was a local tradition that each lantern represented a prayer, a wish for transformation. And that night, as Ashley fought for her life in the hospital, dozens of lanterns rose into the sky, carrying the hopes of an entire town. What no one knew was that in his escape, Daryl carried not only Ashley's documents, but also an even more shocking revelation. An old DNA test done secretly that would prove an impossible connection between the families involved in that plot. A truth that, when revealed, would forever change the destiny of everyone in Harmony Creek. Dawn arrived in Harmony Creek, bringing with it a fine and persistent rain, something rare at that time of year. In the hospital, Ashley slept a restless sleep, while Donna, exhausted from the sleepless night, rested in a nearby chair. Richard watched them through the window of the room, his reflection in the glass showing deep dark circles under his eyes and a tormented expression. "You need to rest too," Irma said, approaching with a cup of coffee. Her wrinkled hands trembled slightly as she offered the drink. "It won't help anyone if you get sick." Richard accepted the coffee, but his eyes didn't leave Ashley. "How didn't I realize it before? Donna worked in my house for almost 2 years. That accusation of theft, my mother was so convinced." "The past is like that," Irma replied, her voice carrying the weight of experience. "Sometimes we need to go full circle to discover that the truth was right there at the beginning." At that moment, Clark rushed into the room holding his tablet. "Richard, you need to see this. I got access to the old records of the bank where Daryl worked. He wasn't just a regular employee. He was a manager, responsible for large accounts. And guess who had an account there? My parents," Richard completed, feeling a knot in his stomach. "Exactly. And more. On the day that Donna was accused of the robbery, there was a suspicious transaction in their account, a large transfer made by Darryl himself. A soft moan interrupted the conversation. Ashley was waking up, her eyes immediately searching for Richard. "Mr. Richard," she called in a weak voice, "I dreamed of little angels carrying lanterns in the sky." Donna woke up startled, running to hug her daughter. "Honey, how are you feeling?" Before Ashley could answer, Dr. Emily Carter, the hospital's cardiologist, entered the room with a grave expression. "We need to talk. The latest tests." She was interrupted by a commotion in the hallway. Brenda entered the room, breathless. "We found Darryl. He was at the Greyhound station trying to flee to Atlanta." "What about the documents?" Donna asked, distressed. "He didn't have them," Brenda replied, "but he said something interesting before being detained. He said he had kept everything in the place where it started, that he would only hand it over in exchange for $100,000. Richard ran a hand through his graying hair, frustrated. "The place where it started? What place is that?" "The bank," Clark said suddenly. "The old bank where he worked. The building has been abandoned for years, in the old part of town." While the group discussed, Ashley had another crisis. Her lips turned bluer than ever, and Dr. Carter acted quickly, administering medication. "We don't have any more time," the doctor declared when the crisis passed. "She needs the surgery in the next 24 hours, or—" She didn't need to complete the sentence. Everyone understood the gravity of the situation. "I'm going to the bank," Richard decided. "Clark, you know the place. Come with me." "I'll go too," Donna said, determined. "No," Irma interjected. "You need to stay with Ashley, and in your condition—" She looked meaningfully at her granddaughter's still imperceptible belly. At that moment, a loud thunder shook the hospital. Windows and the rain increased. Ashley squeezed Richard's hand. "Mr. Richard, I'm scared," she whispered. Richard felt his heart clench. "Don't be afraid, little one. I'll bring your documents and take you to New York. Everything will be okay." But when he and Clark arrived at the old bank, they realized that the situation was more complicated than they imagined. The building was a maze of dark corridors and abandoned rooms with decades of documents piled up in dusty archives. "Where do we start?" Richard asked, his voice echoing in the empty space. "With the vault," Clark replied. "That's where we kept the important documents." As they searched, Clark began to speak, his voice filled with guilt. "Do you know why I got involved in Darryl's schemes? I was a doctor before I was a businessman. I lost a patient in surgery, a girl the age of Ashley. I couldn't deal with the guilt. I abandoned medicine. Darryl appeared offering a fresh start." Richard stopped searching, staring at his friend. "You were a doctor? Why did you never tell me?" "Shame," Clark admitted. "But now, seeing Ashley, maybe it's time to face my demons." A noise made them turn quickly. In the door of the vault, soaked by the rain that entered through the broken windows, stood Irma. "The documents aren't here," she said, her voice firm despite her age. "They're in the place where it all really started, in the house where April worked before she left, where Donna was born. Your family's house, Richard." "How do you—" "I followed you," she explained, "and I brought this." From her bag, she pulled out a yellowed envelope. "These are letters that April wrote before she left us. Letters that tell the true story of what happened in that house." In the hospital, Donna held Ashley, who had begun to hallucinate with fever. The girl murmured about lanterns and angels, her words interspersed with a worrying cough. "Hang in there, honey," Donna whispered, tears streaming down her face. "Mr. Richard will be back, he promised." What no one knew was that, at that very moment, Darryl had managed to escape from the sheriff's department, taking advantage of a moment of distraction by the guards. And he was heading exactly to where Richard, Clark, and Irma were, carrying with him not only the desire for revenge, but also a truth that, when revealed, would make everyone question everything they thought they knew about their own histories. The storm raged over Harmony Creek when Richard, Clark, and Irma arrived at the old Huntington mansion, now abandoned and overtaken by vegetation. The iron gate creaked ominously when Richard pushed it open, revealing the stone path that led to the house where he spent his childhood. "My mother never sold this property," he explained, searching for the keys. "After my father passed away, she moved to New York City and left everything as it was." Irma looked at the house with teary eyes. "This is where I found April for the last time. She was so weak, but she insisted on working. Your mother, Richard, was a hard boss, but April said she needed the job to give Donna a better future." As they climbed the steps of the porch, a flash of lightning illuminated a figure standing at the front door. It was Darryl, soaked and breathless. "I knew you'd come here," he said, his voice hoarse. "All of you so worried about that little pest. You don't know that she's the key to everything." "Where are the documents, Darryl?" Richard demanded, taking a step forward. "The documents?" Darryl laughed bitterly. "They're well guarded. But before I show you, there are a few things you need to know. About that day, 20 years ago, when Donna was accused of theft." Clark put his hand on Richard's shoulder, trying to restrain him. "We don't have time for this. Ashley needs—" "The girl will have to wait," Darryl roared, "because this story started long before she was born. It started here, in this house, when your mother, Richard, discovered that her husband was having an affair with one of the maids." The blood drained from Richard's face. "What are you talking about?" "April," Irma whispered, her hands trembling. "My daughter." "Exactly," Darryl confirmed. "April and Richard's father were having an affair. She got pregnant but lost the baby because of the heart condition. That's when she met Donna in the hospital, a newborn baby who had been abandoned. April adopted her, but your mother, Richard, found out everything. To get revenge, she forged the theft of the jewelry and fired Morgana years later." "How do you know all this?" Clark asked suspiciously. "Because I was the bank manager. I saw the transfers, the payments to keep the secret. Your mother paid me very well to turn a blind eye." At that moment, another lightning bolt flashed, and through the rain everyone saw Donna walking up the stone path, supported by Brenda. "I needed to come," she said, her voice weak. "I needed to know the truth." Darryl took a step towards her but stopped when he saw the gun on Brenda's hip. "You shouldn't be here," he said, his voice surprisingly soft. "Not in your condition." "Condition?" Brenda questioned, frowning. "She's pregnant," Darryl replied, and for the first time his voice betrayed emotion. "With my child. That's why I came to get the documents. Not for the 100,000, but because—" He hesitated, running a hand over his wet face. "Because I don't want this child to grow up ashamed of his father, like it happened with Ashley." A heavy silence fell over the group, broken only by the sound of the rain. Irma was the first to speak. "Where are the documents, Darryl? Not for you, not for us, but for Ashley. She's dying in that hospital." The mention of Ashley seemed to hit Darryl like a punch. He staggered to an old bookcase and removed a loose piece from the baseboard, revealing a yellowed envelope. "It's all here," he said, extending the envelope to Donna. "Ashley's medical records, Donna's adoption certificate, the bank transfers, everything." Donna took the envelope with trembling hands, but before she could open it, her cell phone rang. It was the hospital. "Ashley had another seizure," she said, the panic evident in her voice. "We need to go back now." "I'll take you," Clark said, surprising everyone. "I'm a doctor. I can help until we get there." "A doctor?" Donna looked at him confused. "Long story," he replied, already running to the car. "But maybe it's time to stop running from the past." As the group hurried to the hospital, Richard stayed behind for a moment, looking at the house of his childhood. So many secrets, so many lies. And now Ashley, an innocent girl, was paying the price of decades of deception and betrayal. At The hospital, Dr. Carter was fighting to stabilize Ashley. The girl, in her delirium, kept talking about lanterns in the sky and angels dancing in the rain. The heart monitor beeped in an irregular and worrying rhythm. What no one knew was that, at that very moment, while they were rushing back to the hospital, an even more surprising discovery was about to be made, one that would not only save Ashley's life, but also unite all those broken people in a way that no one could imagine. The Harmony Creek Hospital was in turmoil when the group arrived. The rain was still falling hard outside, but inside Ashley's room, the atmosphere was even more stormy. Dr. Carter and her team worked frantically to stabilize the girl, whose lips were bluer than ever. "We need to do the surgery now," the doctor declared. "We can't wait for the specialist from New York any longer." "I'll do it," Clark said, stepping forward. Everyone turned to him, surprised. "I was a cardiac surgeon for 15 years before I gave up." Dr. Carter examined him with critical eyes. "Is your license still active?" "It is," he replied, already putting on a lab coat. "I never had the courage to cancel it. Maybe I was waiting for a moment like this." As the team prepared the operating room, Donna approached Ashley, who alternated between consciousness and delirium. "Mom," whispered the girl, "the lanterns, they're dancing again." "Yes, honey," Donna replied, swallowing her tears. "They're dancing for you." Richard was watching the scene when he felt a hand on his shoulder. It was Irma holding the envelope that Darryl had handed over. "You need to see this," she said, handing him a yellowed paper. "It's a letter from April, the last one she wrote, before she left." With trembling hands, Richard began to read. "My dearest mother, when you find this letter, I will have already passed away. But I need you to know the truth about Donna. She's not just a child I adopted. She is much more. In the hospital where I found her, I discovered something extraordinary. She had the same heart condition as me. The doctors said it's hereditary, passed from mother to daughter. That's when I realized she was the daughter I lost, or thought I had lost. Mr. Huntington never knew, but our baby survived. Mrs. Huntington, discovering everything, arranged for the child to be taken as soon as she was born. She said she had died. But God has his ways. Years later, working in the same hospital, I found my own daughter. And now I know I won't live much longer, but I die in peace, knowing that you will be able to take care of her and her children, protecting them from this disease that we carry in our blood." Richard dropped the paper, stunned. "Donna is my sister?" "Half-sister," Irma corrected softly, "and Ashley is your niece." At that moment, Darryl, who had been quiet in a corner, approached Donna. For the first time, his face showed true remorse. "I always knew," he confessed. "That's why I became so obsessed with your family. I wanted to avenge the Huntingtons, make them pay for what they did to April. But in the way, I became worse than them." Donna stared at him, a protective hand over her belly. "The baby, are you going to leave him alone?" Darryl nodded slowly. "I'm leaving Harmony Creek. You'll never see me again. But when the child is born, I want him to know that his father regretted everything." The conversation was interrupted by the arrival of Clark, already gowned for surgery. "It's time," he announced. "Wait," Ashley called, her voice weak but determined. "Mr. Richard, will you stay with me until I fall asleep?" Richard approached the stretcher, holding Ashley's small hand. "Always, little one. And when you wake up, I'll tell you an amazing story about our family." The surgery lasted 8 hours. Outside the operating room, the group waited in a silence filled with prayers and hope. Donna, exhausted, fell asleep on Irma's shoulder, who hummed softly an old lullaby. When Clark finally came out of the operating room, his face was lit by a tired smile "She's strong," he announced. "The surgery was a success." The news was received with tears of joy. Donna ran to see her daughter, followed by Richard and Irma. Darrell, after a last look at Donna, left the hospital silently, carrying with him the weight of his mistakes and the promise of a new life far away. 6 months passed. Richard's resort was inaugurated, but in a different way than planned. Half of it was transformed into a children's heart treatment center, the first in the region. Donna, now the administrative director of the center, gave birth to a healthy boy, who was named Michael. Clark returned to medicine, taking over the medical direction of the center and finally finding peace with his past. Irma settled in a house on the resort grounds, created a medicinal herb garden that complemented the modern treatments. On a special afternoon during the Lantern Festival, Ashley, now a healthy and vibrant girl, ran through the garden with other children undergoing treatment. Richard watched the scene from the porch alongside Donna. "I never imagined I'd find a family here," he said, smiling. "And I never imagined that all those lanterns I saw in my dreams were signs," Donna replied. "Signs that the light always finds a way, even in the darkest nights." At that moment, Ashley ran up the steps of the porch, carrying a paper lantern. "Come on, Mr. Richard, let's release it together," she called, her eyes sparkling with joy. Together, they released the lantern into the Alabama sky. As the light rose, joining dozens of others that dotted the dark sky, Ashley whispered, "Grandma April must be happy up there, seeing all those lanterns dancing." Richard embraced his newfound family, feeling that he had finally found his place in the world. Not in the skyscrapers of New York City, but there, under the starry sky of Harmony Creek, where a courageous little girl had taught him that family is not just a matter of blood, but of love, forgiveness, and redemption. And so, as the lanterns rose into the sky carrying the dreams and hopes of all, the story that began with a desperate escape ended with a reunion. Because sometimes you have to get completely lost to find your way back home.